There's also 3,000 listings for death spell. So that's worrisome. But clearly buyers are satisfied with these witches and psychics because there's loads of positive comments. Like, it's crazy how it works. I'll be back, worth every penny.
This video is for Erika Kirk, and girl, I really hope you see this because you are hurting women.
I don't think Erika took the news. I know the coordinators of the 2028 election are so pissed. I'm not trying to say this man would leave his wife while pregnant. I'm just saying that the divorce may have been delayed.
The internet doesn't usually stop for anything, but this time it froze. Timelines stalled, comment sections exploded, and suddenly everyone was asking the same uneasy question at once. What happens when pregnancy news collides with conspiracy, grief, and a name the internet already doesn't trust? Because overnight, reports started circulating that pulled Erika Kirk right back into the center of chaos. And this time, the accusations were darker, stranger, and more disturbing than anything before. Fans are shocked, critics are furious, and even people who don't believe a word of it admit one thing feels off about the timing. It all began with what should have been a quiet, happy announcement: Usha Vance revealing she's pregnant again, a moment meant to be personal, private, and celebratory. But instead of congratulations being the loudest reaction, whispers started spreading. Screenshots, clips, old interviews resurfacing. Suddenly, people weren't just celebrating a pregnancy, they were arguing over motives, power, and a woman some say has already crossed invisible lines in the past. Emotions ran high almost instantly, and once the rumor machine started, there was no slowing it down. The most unsettling part is that no one is saying this actually happened, not even the people spreading it. Instead, they keep repeating the same phrase over and over. These are reports, this is what's being said, this is what's circulating. But that hasn't stopped the story from growing legs. Accusations about Etsy witches, claims of desperate behavior, old trauma being dragged back into the spotlight. And
I don't think Erika took the news. I know the coordinators of the 2028 election are so pissed. And I'm sorry, I have to do the parallels. This is giving Scandal season 1 finale where she had to coordinate Millie getting...
The center of it all, Erika Kirk, once again facing a wave of suspicion, she says she's tired of fighting. Fans are divided. Some are defending her fiercely, saying this is cruel, dangerous gossip targeting a grieving woman. Others argue that history, timing, and past controversies make it impossible to ignore. The family was left divided in the court of public opinion.
Vance was not wearing her wedding ring at her most recent appearance with Melania Trump at that military base a couple of days ago. Was making no effort to hide it either. When she spoke to the troops, she was seen talking with Melania, giving a speech. Here's a reminder, this is what her wedding rings look like. They're very obvious, okay? They're very like you could...
Opinion before anyone could even catch their breath. And the more people try to shut the conversation down, the louder it seems to get. So now the question isn't whether witches are real or whether any of this makes sense. The real question is why so many people are willing to believe it, why this story caught fire so fast, and why Erika Kirk's name keeps resurfacing every time something major happens around power, politics, or pregnancy. Because whether these reports are true or not, the damage of the narrative is already spreading, and the fallout is only just beginning. The story did not explode all at once. It crept in quietly, almost politely, the way rumors usually do before they turn into something louder. A post here, a comment there, a clipped video stitched with an old interview, all framed carefully with the same cautious language. People kept saying they were not making claims, only repeating what was being reported. But repetition has power, and soon the narrative started to feel heavier than the disclaimers attached to it. Erika Kirk's name began trending again, not because of anything she announced, but because strangers online decided the moment was too symbolic to ignore. People started going back through her past appearances, watching her expressions more closely than ever, pausing clips mid-sentence.
We heard of the curses Jezebel had called up. So much so that she and Charlie contacted a friend, who I believe she said was a Catholic priest, but definitely a friend, and asked him to come over and pray with them over Charlie.
Analyzing tone like it was evidence. Fans were shocked by how quickly sympathy turned into suspicion. Some said it felt like déjà vu, like the internet had been waiting for an excuse to reopen wounds that never really healed. Others argued that this was different, that the timing alone made it impossible to brush off. Emotions ran high because this was no longer just about Erika. It was about pregnancy, grief, power, and fear, all tangled together in a way that made people uncomfortable. What fueled the fire even more was the way these reports were framed. No one claimed certainty. Instead, posts leaned on words like allegedly, reportedly, circulating. That careful distance somehow made the story spread faster. It invited people to speculate without feeling responsible.
Screenshots of Etsy listings began circulating alongside dramatic captions. Some users pointed to reviews, others to price tags, as if browsing an online marketplace was suddenly proof of something darker. People argued in circles, one side insisting this was absurd fantasy, the other saying belief was not the point, perception was. Fans who once defended Erika without hesitation found themselves conflicted. Many remembered how shaken she appeared in the months after tragedy, how openly she spoke about fear, prayer, and feeling targeted. Supporters said it made no sense that someone so frightened by past rumors would suddenly engage in anything similar. Critics countered by saying desperation changes people, especially when they believe everything has been taken from them. The family was left divided in the comments, with
some pleading for empathy and others demanding accountability for something that had not even been proven. Interview 404-419. Old interviews began resurfacing, not because they mentioned witches or accusations, but because they revealed emotional cracks. People replayed moments where Erika spoke about loss, about wanting more children, about feeling robbed of a future she thought was guaranteed. Taken out of context, those words now carried a different weight for viewers already primed to believe something was wrong. Fans are shocked by how quickly compassion can be rewritten as suspicion once a narrative shifts. Meanwhile, Usha Vance's pregnancy announcement sat quietly at the center of all this noise. What should have been a simple family moment became the spark that lit the fuse. Supporters of Usha expressed anger that her pregnancy was being dragged into someone else's controversy. Others argued that the public reaction said more about the internet than about either woman involved. Still, the reactions kept pouring in, and every response seemed to create 10 more questions. People close to Erika were reportedly frustrated, saying the cycle never ends. Just when things appear to settle, something new pulls her back into the spotlight. Some friends hinted that she felt targeted, that no amount of denial ever seems to matter once a rumor takes hold. Critics, however, argued that silence only feeds speculation, while speaking out invites even more scrutiny. It became a lose-lose situation, played out in real time across platforms that reward outrage more than restraint. The most unsettling aspect for many viewers was not the content of the accusations, but how easily people entertained them. Conversation shifted from what is true to what feels possible. Trust eroded, not because of evidence, but because of accumulated doubt built over time. Fans debated late into the night over whether Erika was a victim of relentless gossip or someone whose past made her an easy target. Emotions ran high because nobody could agree on where sympathy should end and skepticism should begin. As the discussion grew louder, some voices tried to pull things back to reality, reminding everyone that these were just reports and online claims, not facts. But by then, the story had already taken on a life of its own. Reaction videos multiplied, commentary layered on commentary, each adding a little more drama, a little more suspicion. People who had never followed Erika closely before were suddenly forming strong opinions based on fragments and speculation. What remained consistent was the tension hanging over every conversation. No one wanted to be the person dismissing a serious concern, but no one wanted to accuse without proof either. That uneasy balance kept the story alive. And as the days passed, it became clear that this was not about witches or listings or rumors alone. It was about how quickly narratives harden, how trust fractures, and how once a name becomes associated with controversy, even unrelated events can reignite old doubts without warning. The conversation shifted from curiosity to tension once people began asking not what was true, but what felt believable. That difference mattered. Online spaces filled with commentary that did not accuse outright, yet did not let the story rest either. Every clip reposted came with a tone of disbelief mixed with intrigue. People said they were disturbed not because they believed every rumor, but because the situation reminded them of how fragile reputations become once grief, power, and public life collide. Fans are shocked by how quickly a name can trend for reasons completely disconnected from any confirmed action. Erika Kirk found herself discussed in the same breath as fear, desperation, and obsession, even though no proof was presented. That alone became part of the drama. Some argued that if nothing was real, it would not feel so unsettling. Others pushed back, saying discomfort does not equal truth. The debate grew louder because both sides felt morally justified. Supporters believed they were protecting someone who had already lost too much. Critics felt they were questioning behavior patterns rather than inventing wrongdoing. Emotions ran high because neither side wanted to be seen as cruel or naive. Old moments resurfaced that had nothing to do with the current claims, but everything to do with perception. People replayed interviews where Erika spoke candidly about fear, about feeling watched, about praying for protection. At the time, those words were received with sympathy. Now, some viewers heard them differently.
not as vulnerability, but as a glimpse into how deeply shaken she had been by previous controversies. Fans argued in comment sections over tone and intention, dissecting pauses, facial expressions, and phrases that were never meant to carry this much weight. The pregnancy announcement that started this wave of attention remained strangely quiet.
Comparison. Usha Vance herself did not engage with the noise, which only added to speculation. Some people praised her silence, saying it showed strength and boundaries. Others interpreted it as confirmation that something darker was unfolding behind the scenes. The family was left divided in public opinion, not because of any statement made, but because of what was not said. Silence became another canvas for projection. Friends and commentators close to Erika suggested that this pattern was familiar. Every time a major political or personal milestone occurred around her orbit, rumors followed. Some said it felt intentional, like she was being used as a symbol for fears people already carried. Others believed repeated controversy meant repeated responsibility, even without evidence. The tension between those views kept the story alive. No one wanted to let it fade too quickly, because letting it fade felt like choosing a side. As more voices joined the discussion, the narrative expanded beyond the original reports. People began talking about power dynamics, about ambition, about how public figures are often reduced to characters in someone else's storyline. Erika was no longer just a person, but a role the internet assigned to her. Some labeled her the grieving widow, others framed her as someone unable to let go of influence. Neither portrayal was complete, but both were dramatic enough to sustain attention. Dialogues imagined by commentators became more vivid with each retelling. People speculated about private conversations that never happened, about emotions that were never expressed publicly. What if she felt replaced, some asked. What if she felt erased, others added. These questions were not answers, yet they were repeated as if exploring them was harmless. Fans are shocked by how easily imagination can slip into assumption when fueled by emotion. Those defending Erika pointed out that fear can make people say and do strange things without meaning harm. They referenced how she once admitted being terrified by stories and rumors directed at her family. To them, it made no sense that she would ever want to be associated with something similar. Critics responded by saying fear and control are not opposites, and that desperation can blur moral lines. Again, no one claimed certainty, only possibility, and possibility proved enough to keep people watching. The story also tapped into a broader anxiety about belief itself. Discussions drifted into how easily people latch on to symbolic explanations when reality feels too complex. Some viewers admitted they did not believe in witches or curses at all, yet still felt uneasy. Not because of magic, but because of how narratives can be weaponized. The idea that someone could be accused without proof and still suffer consequences struck a nerve. At the same time, the idea that powerful people might hide behind disbelief also unsettled others. Erika's lack of direct response during the early surge of reports became another focal point. Supporters said she was protecting her mental health. Critics said silence allowed speculation to grow unchecked. Every hour without a statement seemed to fuel another round of commentary. Reaction channels filled the gap, analyzing what a response might look like, what tone would be convincing, what words would be enough. None of it satisfied everyone. Through all of this, the human cost was easy to forget. Conversations about pregnancy, grief, and fear were reduced to talking points. People argued passionately, while rarely acknowledging that real families were involved. Emotions ran high because the story blurred the line between entertainment and intrusion. Viewers who initially clicked out of curiosity found themselves questioning why they were still watching, yet unable to look away. What kept the momentum going wasn't evidence, but momentum itself. Once a narrative reached a certain volume, it no longer needed new information to survive. It fed on reaction. Outrage created defense, defense created suspicion, suspicion created more outrage. Fans are shocked by how familiar this cycle feels, yet it repeats every time. And as the discussion deepened, it became clear that this was less about uncovering truth and more about deciding who deserved trust when certainty was no longer available. The moment the report started circulating, people reacted before they even finished reading. Screenshots moved faster than explanations, and short clips replaced context. What stood out was not a single claim, but the way multiple old narratives suddenly collided into one. Erika Kirk's name appeared next to words like desperation and obsession, while Usha Vance's pregnancy announcement sat at the center of it all, quietly turning what should have been a celebratory moment into something tense and unsettling. Fans are shocked not because they believe everything they are seeing, but because of how familiar this pattern feels. Commentators were careful with their language at first. They kept repeating that these were reports, that nothing had been proven, that the story existed only in online conversations. But even with those caveats, the emotional reaction was immediate. People remembered how Erika had been treated in the past, how quickly sympathy turned into suspicion after tragedy struck her life. Some viewers said it felt like the internet had been waiting for an excuse to reopen those wounds, while others argued that unresolved questions from the past made renewed attention inevitable. What made the situation heavier was the symbolism people attached to timing. Usha Vance announcing a pregnancy, while Erika was still publicly associated with loss, created a contrast that many could not stop discussing. Some framed it as cruel coincidence, others framed it as irony. Neither side needed facts to argue their point, only emotion. Emotions ran high because pregnancy and grief are both deeply personal, yet here they were being debated by strangers like plot points in a drama. As the conversation grew louder, people began revisiting Erika's past interviews. Lines that once sounded vulnerable now sounded ominous to critics. Statements about fear, prayer, and feeling spiritually threatened were pulled from their original context and replayed endlessly. Supporters insisted this was unfair, saying vulnerability should not be retroactively punished. Critics countered by saying public figures cannot control how their words are reinterpreted once trust erodes. The family was left divided in public opinion without anyone directly involved saying a word. Social media made the story feel bigger than it was. Reaction videos multiplied, each adding a new layer of speculation. Some hosts spoke with concern, others with barely disguised excitement. Phrases like "people are asking questions" and "viewers are disturbed" were repeated so often they started sounding like conclusions rather than commentary. Fans are shocked by how quickly neutral observation turns into implied judgment once an audience senses controversy. Friends of Erika, at least those claiming to be close to her, hinted online that she felt targeted again. They described exhaustion, frustration, and a sense that no amount of denial ever truly clears the air. Critics dismissed those comments as damage control. To them, repeated controversy meant repeated accountability, even if no evidence was presented. This clash between empathy and skepticism became the heartbeat of the story. Meanwhile, Usha Vance remained silent. That silence took on a life of its own. Some praised her for protecting her peace during pregnancy. Others interpreted the lack of response as confirmation that something was deeply wrong. Neither interpretation was grounded in fact, yet both were repeated with confidence. The absence of words became as loud as an accusation in the eyes of an audience already primed for drama. People also began questioning why stories like this spread so easily. Some admitted they did not believe in witches, curses, or anything supernatural, yet still felt uneasy. Not because of magic, but because of how narratives gain power once they tap into existing distrust. Erika had already been associated with controversy, grief, and fear. That history made it easier for some viewers to imagine darker possibilities, even while insisting they were not accusing her of anything. Supporters pointed out the contradiction in the narrative. They reminded everyone that Erika had once been visibly shaken by similar rumors, that she had spoken openly about being afraid of spiritual attacks. To them, it made no sense that she would ever engage in behavior that mirrored what once terrified her. Critics responded by saying fear does not always lead to avoidance, sometimes it leads to control. Again, no one claimed certainty, only possibility, and possibility proved enough to keep the conversation alive. The story also revealed how quickly public figures lose ownership of their own narratives. Erika became a character shaped by commentary rather than her own actions. Usha became a symbol rather than a person. Pregnancy became a plot twist rather than a private moment. Emotions ran high because viewers sensed something wrong, even if they could not articulate exactly what it was. As days passed, the reports did not gain clarity, but they gained volume. Repetition created familiarity, and familiarity created belief for some, fatigue for others. Fans are shocked by how little new information was needed to sustain interest. Outrage fed defense, defense fed suspicion, and suspicion fed more outrage. It became clear that this was not about proving anything, but about deciding who deserved trust when certainty was absent. By the time the conversation settled into a steady roar, one thing was undeniable. Even without proof, the damage of perception had already begun. Erika Kirk was once again forced into a defensive position, and Usha Vance's pregnancy was no longer just a family announcement, but a catalyst for online chaos. The story continued not because facts demanded it, but because emotions did. And once emotions take control, logic rarely stands a chance. As the noise grew louder, the tone of the conversation began to shift from curiosity to something sharper. People were no longer just reacting, they were choosing sides. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds where every sentence felt like a verdict. Some viewers said they felt sick watching a pregnancy become part of online warfare, while others argued that public figures invite scrutiny whether they want it or not. Emotions ran high because no one could agree on where concern ended and cruelty began. What intensified everything was the way older controversies were pulled back into the spotlight. Moments that had already been argued over months earlier suddenly felt new again. People replayed footage of Erika speaking confidently in public, then contrasted it with clips where she appeared emotional or defensive. Critics claimed they saw inconsistency. Supporters said they saw a human being reacting differently under different pressures. The same footage became evidence for two completely opposite narratives, and neither side was willing to back down. Speculation began to fill in gaps that facts never touched. Online commentators imagined private conversations, tense phone calls, sleepless nights. They asked rhetorical questions that sounded almost accusatory. What would it feel like to watch someone else live the life you once imagined? What happens when grief turns into resentment? None of these questions were answered, yet they were repeated so often they started shaping perception. Fans are shocked by how imagination can harden into assumption when repeated long enough. Some voices tried to slow things down by reminding everyone that rumors do not equal reality. They stressed that repeating a claim, even with disclaimers, still causes harm. Others dismissed those concerns, arguing that discussing reports is not the same as endorsing them. This distinction became a point of conflict itself. One side accused the other of being reckless, the other accused their critics of censorship. The family was left divided in public opinion, with empathy and suspicion locked in constant tension. As discussions dragged on, the emotional weight shifted again. What started as shock began turning into fatigue for some viewers. They questioned why they were still engaging, why this story felt impossible to escape. Yet every time someone tried to disengage, a new clip or commentary pulled them back in. The algorithm rewarded outrage, and ouch kept the story alive. Fans are shocked by how quickly entertainment and distress blur together online. Those defending Erika emphasized her isolation. They pointed out how often she appeared alone in these narratives, surrounded by voices speaking for her but rarely with her. They argued that the internet had already decided who she was long before these reports surfaced. Critics responded by saying public trust is fragile, and once broken, it cannot be repaired by silence or sympathy alone. Again, no one offered proof, only interpretation. Meanwhile, the absence of direct confrontation between the people involved became its own drama. No statements, no interviews addressing the reports head-on, just silence and commentary filling the space. Some viewers said the quiet felt ominous. Others said it was the only sane response to an insane rumor cycle. The lack of resolution frustrated audiences used to neat conclusions. Unresolved tension became part of the appeal. The pregnancy at the center of all this remained a sensitive subject, yet it was constantly referenced indirectly. People spoke about protection, stress, and emotional well-being without ever acknowledging how invasive those conversations were. Supporters of Usha expressed anger that her body and family were being dragged into speculation she never asked for. Critics countered by saying public figures cannot separate personal milestones from public reaction. Emotions ran high because both sides felt morally justified. The story also exposed how easily grief narratives can be rewritten. Erika's loss, once framed as tragic and deserving of compassion, was now being questioned by some as a source of bitterness or motivation. Supporters found this shift disturbing. They argued that grief does not follow a timeline and cannot be measured by outsiders. Critics said grief can coexist with ambition and resentment. Neither side was willing to concede. As days passed, the language used around the story grew more dramatic. Words like chaos, spiral, and breakdown appeared more frequently. Even those who insisted they did not believe the reports admitted they found the situation unsettling. Not because of any specific claim, but because of the sheer intensity of reaction. Fans are shocked by how
quickly collective emotion can overpower reason once a narrative takes hold. Behind all of this was a deeper discomfort about belief itself. Some viewers questioned why they felt compelled to keep watching. Others admitted they were drawn to the story because it reflected broader fears about power, influence, and loss. Erika became a symbol for unresolved anxieties, while Usha's pregnancy became a trigger rather than a moment of joy. The human element faded as the narrative grew louder. By this point, it no longer mattered whether the reports gained new details. The story had evolved beyond its origin. It was now about perception, trust, and the way public figures are consumed by speculation. People debated not what happened, but what kind of person could be capable of such things, a question that cannot be answered without evidence, yet keeps audiences hooked. The tension lingered because no one wanted to be the one who dismissed a potential concern, but no one wanted to accuse without proof either. That unresolved middle ground kept the conversation alive. Fans are shocked by how uncomfortable uncertainty feels, yet how addictive it can become. The narrative continued to expand, fed by emotion rather than facts, drawing more people into a cycle that showed no sign of slowing down. The longer the discussion dragged on, the more personal it started to feel for people watching from the outside. This was no longer just another trending topic to scroll past. Viewers began projecting their own fears, experiences, and moral lines onto the situation. Some said the story disturbed them because it touched pregnancy and loss at the same time, two things that feel untouchable to many. Others admitted the discomfort was exactly why they could not look away. Emotions ran high because the story forced people to confront how easily empathy can turn into suspicion. New reaction voices entered the space, each framing the situation through a slightly different lens. Some focused on Erika's public confidence, arguing that it masked unresolved anger. Others focused on her visible vulnerability, insisting it proved she was being unfairly targeted. The same behavior was used to argue opposite conclusions. Fans are shocked by how flexible interpretation becomes when trust has already been damaged. Nothing felt neutral anymore. Every word and every silence was treated as meaningful. Private grief became public property again. Commentators spoke about Erika's loss as if it were an open case study, debating how a person should behave after tragedy. Some argued that grief should humble someone, make them retreat. Others said grief can fuel ambition, make people cling harder to control and relevance. Neither view was grounded in proof, yet both were repeated with certainty. The family was left divided in public opinion, not because of new information, but because of how people believe grief is supposed to look. What unsettled many viewers was how easily imagination filled the gaps. People speculated about late-night thoughts, unspoken resentment, and emotional comparisons that no one could verify. Phrases like "what if" and "imagine if" became common, slowly shaping perception without ever making direct claims. Fans are shocked by how hypothetical questions can feel accusatory when repeated often enough. Even those who tried to remain neutral admitted the atmosphere felt heavy. Supporters of Erika pushed back harder at this stage. They accused commentators of exploiting trauma for views and engagement. They argued that constantly revisiting her past pain while claiming neutrality was dishonest. Critics responded by saying silence and sympathy had already been given, and unanswered questions remained. This back and forth created an endless loop, with neither side willing to acknowledge the other's concerns fully. Usha Vance's pregnancy continued to exist almost as a shadow in the background of every argument. People talked around it rather than about it directly. Stress, protection, and emotional energy were mentioned repeatedly, as if saying the words carefully enough would avoid crossing a line. Still, many viewers felt that line had already been crossed. Supporters of Usha said the situation showed how little privacy public figures truly have. Critics argue that public reaction cannot be controlled once news is shared. Emotions ran high because both positions felt true at the same time. Some commentators tried to redirect the conversation toward accountability and media consumption. They asked whether repeating rumors with disclaimers was any different from spreading them outright. Others dismissed this concern, saying discussion does not equal endorsement. This argument itself became content, drawing even more attention to the original story. Fans are shocked by how easily meta-discussions still fuel the same cycle they claim to critique. The absence of a clear villain or hero made the narrative more addictive. There was no definitive
statement to react to, no confrontation to analyze, just layers of interpretation stacked on top of each other. Audiences accustomed to dramatic resolution found themselves stuck in uncertainty, and that uncertainty became part of the entertainment. The lack of closure kept engagement high, even as discomfort grew. As more time passed, some viewers began questioning their own reactions. They wondered why they felt compelled to judge someone they did not know based on fragments and speculation. Others doubled down, saying intuition matters when patterns repeat. This split revealed a deeper divide about belief itself. Do people wait for proof, or do they trust their sense of what feels wrong? The story tapped into that tension perfectly. Erika's perceived confidence became another point of debate. Some saw it as strength, a refusal to be broken by endless scrutiny. Others interpreted it as arrogance, proof that she believed she could weather any storm. Supporters argued that women are often punished for appearing composed under pressure. Critics said composure can look like indifference when accountability is expected. Again, no facts shifted, only interpretation. The longer this continued, the clearer it became that the story was no longer about witches, rumors, or even pregnancy alone. It was about power over narrative. Who gets to define meaning when facts are unclear? Who benefits from uncertainty? Who is trusted when emotions are involved? Fans are shocked by how quickly these abstract questions became personal judgments about real people. Some viewers expressed concern that once a person is labeled suspicious, no explanation will ever feel sufficient. Denial looks defensive, silence looks guilty, emotion looks unstable, confidence looks calculating. Erika seemed trapped in that paradox in the eyes of critics. Supporters said this proved the accusations were unfair from the start. Critics said it proved something was being hidden. The cycle fed itself. By this stage, even people who initially dismissed the reports admitted the situation felt tense, not because of belief in the claims, but because of the intensity surrounding them. The internet had collectively decided this story mattered, and once that decision was made, logic took a back seat. Emotions ran high because everyone sensed the weight of the moment, even if they could not explain why. What remained unresolved was not a question of truth, but a question of trust. Who deserves the benefit of the doubt when public history is complicated? How much context matters when perception has already shifted? As the conversation continued to churn, it became clear that this narrative was far from finished. It had embedded itself into broader fears and frustrations, ensuring that whatever came next would be filtered through everything that had already been said. By the time the conversation reached this stage, it was clear that no new claim was needed to keep it alive. The story had settled into a constant hum, always present, always referenced, even when people insisted they were tired of it. Viewers began treating it less like breaking news and more like an ongoing saga, one that reflected deeper anxieties about trust, power, and morality. Fans are shocked by how something unproven can still feel unresolved, as if closure is expected even when facts never arrive. Some commentators shifted focus toward the emotional aftermath rather than the accusations themselves. They spoke about how Erika must be experiencing yet another wave of scrutiny layered on top of unresolved grief. Supporters argued that being constantly questioned changes a person, that living under suspicion reshapes how someone moves through the world. Critics responded that public life comes with public consequences, and repeated controversy cannot be separated from personal responsibility. Emotions ran high because both arguments touched on fairness in different ways. The idea of intention became a central theme. People debated whether intention matters more than impact. Even if nothing happened, some argued, the emotional damage caused by the rumors was real. Others countered that intention without action should not be punished, especially when based on speculation. This philosophical tug-of-war kept viewers engaged long after the original reports faded from prominence. Fans are shocked by how moral debates can be fueled by stories that lack concrete resolution. Attention also turned toward how audiences themselves participate in these cycles. Some viewers admitted guilt, saying they clicked out of curiosity and stayed out of habit. Others defended their engagement, arguing that discussion is a form of processing collective discomfort. Commentators pointed out that outrage is rarely accidental online, that algorithms amplify emotion because emotion drives attention. The story became an example of that dynamic in real time, even as it continued benefiting from it. The pregnancy at the center
of all this continued to be referenced indirectly, almost reverently. People spoke about protection, stress, and well-being without naming specifics. Supporters of Usha Vance reiterated that her silence should not be interpreted as anything beyond personal boundaries. Critics said silence always invites interpretation, especially in high-profile situations. Emotions ran high because pregnancy is often treated as sacred, yet here it was tangled in speculation that felt anything but respectful. As conversations continued, some viewers began reframing the entire situation as a cautionary tale. They argued that once someone becomes a symbol for controversy, every unrelated event can be weaponized against them. Erika's name had reached that point, they said, where neutrality was no longer possible. Others rejected this framing, insisting that repeated patterns invite scrutiny, whether or not proof emerges. Fans are shocked by how easily people disagree on what patterns actually mean. The lack of a definitive statement from Erika remained a point of fixation. Supporters argued that responding would only legitimize baseless claims. Critics insisted that refusing to address them allowed suspicion to grow unchecked. Both sides claimed to be protecting truth in their own way. The paradox ensured no response could ever satisfy everyone. Denial would be dissected, silence would be questioned, emotion would be criticized, composure would be doubted. The longer this dynamic persisted, the more it highlighted how public narratives often consume nuance. Complex human experiences were flattened into talking points. Grief became motivation, pregnancy became leverage, fear became suspicion. Fans are shocked by how quickly empathy erodes once a storyline offers enough drama to replace it. What began as reports turned into assumptions, and assumptions turned into emotional investment. Some viewers expressed concern about the long-term impact of this kind of attention. They worried that normalizing speculation around deeply personal matters would set a dangerous precedent. Others argued that the internet has always operated this way, and this story was no different. The disagreement reflected a broader divide about accountability in digital spaces. Should audiences restrain themselves, or is restraint unrealistic once a narrative catches fire? What remained undeniable was the shift in tone. Even those who claimed neutrality spoke with caution now. Words were chosen carefully, not to avoid offense, but to avoid being misunderstood. The story had become a test of loyalty as much as belief.
fans are shocked by how quickly neutrality is perceived as betrayal in polarized conversations. As the discussion stretched on, some voices attempted to redirect attention toward compassion. They reminded audiences that behind every rumor are real people absorbing the fallout. Critics accused them of emotional manipulation. Supporters accused critics of cruelty. The back and forth never reached resolution, only exhaustion. Yet even exhaustion did not stop engagement. In the end, the story stood not as a question of what happened, but as a reflection of how stories gain power without answers. Erika Kirk remained suspended in a space between sympathy and suspicion. Usha Vance's pregnancy remained overshadowed by discourse she never invited. The audience remained divided, pulled between curiosity and discomfort. Fans are shocked not by any single claim, but by the realization that once a narrative reaches this point, it no longer needs truth to survive. The unresolved nature of it all ensured the conversation would linger, not because new information demanded attention, but because unresolved emotion always does. The story became a mirror, reflecting how quickly people assign meaning, how fiercely they defend belief, and how rarely they step back once invested. And as long as those emotions remain, the narrative will continue echoing, regardless of whether answers ever arrive. At this point, you have seen how quickly a story can grow without ever being proven. You have watched how reports, reactions, and speculation can turn a private moment into public chaos. None of this claims that anything actually happened, but it does raise uncomfortable questions about perception, trust, and how fast narratives spin out of control once the internet locks in. Emotions ran high throughout this story because people were not reacting to facts alone. They were reacting to fear, timing, and history. Now it is your turn to decide what you think. Do you believe this is just another case of online conspiracy culture going too far, or do you think repeated controversy makes people naturally suspicious? Does silence protect people, or does it allow rumors to grow? And where should the line be drawn when pregnancy, grief, and public life collide? These are not simple questions, and that is exactly why this conversation refuses to die. If you made it this far, it means
This story affected you in some way. Maybe it made you uncomfortable. Maybe it made you angry. Maybe it made you question how easily opinions form online. Whatever you are feeling, that reaction is part of why stories like this spread so fast. The internet feeds on emotion, and every click, comment, and share keeps the cycle going. So now, talk back. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think these reports are irresponsible, or do you think discussing them is fair commentary? Should people stop speculating, or is speculation unavoidable in public life? Keep it respectful, but be honest, because this is one of those stories where every perspective reveals something bigger. If you want to stay updated on stories like this, where headlines collide with controversy and public reaction shapes the narrative, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you do not miss what happens next. Because as you can see, once a story reaches this level, it rarely ends quietly.